everyone, and welcome back again. This is Cureton, Senior Journalist for XR Today, and we are always bringing you the latest and greatest from the VR, AR, and XR industry. And today we're going to be speaking to Mr. Tom Symonds. He is the Chief Executive of Immerse. This is a company that's really doing a lot of great things in the immersive training space, and we'll be talking to him about some of the solutions that they have been working with Anglo American. So it's a pleasure to have you on, Tom. It's nice to speak to you today.
Great, Damon. Thank you very much for inviting me. Delighted to be here.
Brilliant. So yeah, we can kick off the conversation a little bit. What is your role with Immerse, and what are some of the latest things that Immerse has been up to?
Yeah, so I'm the CEO and co-founder. I've been working in the immersive learning training space for 10 plus years. So that makes me a bit of a granddad, I think. But we've always been focused on that space where the best immersive technology meets learning. So when the first VR devices came out about 7 or 8 years ago, clearly that was a huge and very obvious pivot. So, we've been building an amazing platform. We had a multiplayer platform 8 years ago, really before anyone knew what to do with it. So we've developed an expertise that allows learning solutions to be distributed at scale in large enterprise. And this is why I think today we'll focus a bit on Anglo American. They're a huge global business with a widely distributed workforce. So they're a perfect client for Immerse. Look, we can get into some of the detail of that shortly.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely do that. Dig in to all the latest updates with that. And so, thanks for that information also. We can talk a little bit about what Immerse has been up to lately. So there have been some upgrades.
Yeah.
What has Immerse upgraded recently to the platform, and how is that helping learners?
Yeah, so I would say one of the things that we really believe passionately in at Immerse is about the creation of an open ecosystem, an open solution that gives our clients a maximum amount of choice. And I think when we look at what we can offer customers today, there's really three options. We can, as a team, build customized, very sophisticated content, and we do that for certain clients. But increasingly, we want to be seen as the facilitators of content creation on our platform. So as a second option, if you're a company that had already perhaps built some VR and you had your favorite pet agency with whom you had a great relationship, or maybe you were even hiring your own Unity or Unreal developers, then if you licensed our Unreal or Unreal or Unity SDKs, then you can build or import content straight onto the platform. So that would be a kind of second option in terms of your choice. And the third option, which we think is very exciting, is the marketplace. And we launched that last year. And the marketplace is really the home of ready-made VR-based training apps. We have spent a considerable amount of time curating who we think are leading players in this space. It's a very global footprint. They come from all over the world, but they are companies that have a very often a very specialist niche. It could be by vertical, mining content, could be oil and gas, could be medical content, or it could be content that's specific to cultural training, gender bias training, presentation skills. And so in the marketplace today, you've got about 150 titles from about 25 companies. It's growing month on month. And what that allows you to do as a company that's perhaps not yet dipped your toe in the XR waters, you can get in for 10, 20,000 rather than spending more on custom content. And you can begin to experience that content much more quickly because it's ready-made and you don't have to wait for the custom content, which could take 3 months or more. So that choice is a very, very central part of our strategy going forward. And we're looking to foster this growing content ecosystem.
Yeah, it's brilliant that you mentioned that, because there's a lot of things taking place with immersive training. We've seen a lot of companies like Multiples Flame, AR, VR, and a few others that are entering this. And this is one of the fastest growing verticals for this industry. So yeah, some of the things that Immerse is doing is going to help propel that for the near future. And
Yeah,
we'll
look,
see a lot more of that with generative AI. So brilliant. Yeah.
I
Now,
agree.
we talk. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, it's really important to say that there are a growing number of brilliant companies. And I think when we started off getting into the VR content space, we thought we could do everything. And we very quickly learned that we were good at certain things, but many things we were better left to the experts. And I think this is the exciting thing. I think the piece that we hope to be able to bring to these content companies is the platform, because the platform is something that has taken us considerable time and investment to build. And we want those content companies and their customers to benefit from all the great things the platform does.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, that's the beautiful thing about the metaverse is that, or not necessarily the metaverse, but like XR in general, is that a lot of companies are contributing what they can and what their strengths are to the industry itself. So that ends up, forming collaborations. People can share their technologies with each other. Their creative content becomes interoperable and things of that nature. So yeah, it's great to see what's going to happen with that. Now, I was going to ask you about specific use case that you were speaking about previously. And well, actually, that's one of those related to Anglo American. So what is it that Anglo American does? Can you explain that to our audiences? And also, how did your platform, create training modules for this?
Yeah, so Anglo American are a significant international mining business with operations right across the world. By definition, anyone working in an operational role in Anglo American is operating in an environment of very high risk and danger if procedures and processes are not followed, if equipment is not operated correctly. And so when we look at the amount of companies that are doing VR, we quickly realized that Anglo American were really in the leading pack. They got into VR very early. They didn't wait around, which we love, and they built content using local content creation companies. And they built in excess of 50, which is a very high number relative to other companies we come across. But that content was developed by 7 or 8 different companies. The content sat on various different servers. There were no common standards. There was no approach to capturing data. There was no real joined up approach to linking back with a central learning management system. So although they had made significant progress at a kind of regional level, they just didn't have that joined up view. And as a result, they weren't taking advantages of the economies of scale. They couldn't share the content very easily. So when we came on the scene, we said to them, look, we have the solution for you. We can migrate all of that content using our Unity SDK, because it was mostly Unity-based content. And we can stick it on our platform, and then you'll be able to integrate it with your LMS, and you will begin to get to a point where you have that global visibility, where you will have the ability to share those training assets in different mining operations rather than sitting in silos. And you'll begin to be able to really understand the efficacy of the content, because I think it's always, one of the barriers that we have. All of us players in the VR training space, often people say, well, it's expensive, or does it really work? And the only way that you can prove that is by very clearly measuring the ROI on the data that you capture with someone or multiple people in an experience. And I think we feel now that we have given Anglo a very strong basis to create a new blend of training, which, as we will all say in the industry too, it's not about junking the classroom or getting rid of, PC-based learning. It's about establishing a much more powerful blend that really maximizes all the amazing things that XR can do, and creating a different mix. And I think with the solution that we put in place with Anglo, they're now very well set up to do that. I would say one other really interesting thing about Anglo is that they're also using content from the marketplace, because it gives them new options. Some of the soft skills content that they hadn't perhaps considered, now they can begin to try and test out at a very economical price point. So there are a lot of great things that we feel we're bringing to the table. And I think it's also worth saying that it's sadly rare for a client to go public on a piece of work, a collaboration. So I think it's great to be able to mention Anglo American by name rather than a mining company, because I think that's partly linked to the value that we're bringing. So they've been a great partner for us.
Yeah, great things to speak about with that. And I know that a lot of mining companies have been using this because they can produce this content on the fly and also allow themselves to get the things right that they need to and prepare themselves from day one when they need to deploy to the actual physical locations. Now, you mentioned something I hope that we had spoken about before, that I wanted to know about you as an end user with Unity and Unreal Engine. How specifically does that help you to kind of create this content? Is it a very good solution for your company to kind of create workflows, to deploy data, to deploy like the different kinds of training modules, things like that? What are your thoughts overall about those two as an end user?
Yeah, look, I would say I talk to you sadly from the perspective of my brilliant developers. I'm the least well qualified to talk about that. But what I would say is that when we began to build content, and this was originally pre-VR, we had a small group of absolutely brilliant Unity developers that I'm delighted to say are still with us today. So the Unity Games Engine has been fundamental to how we have developed content. And of course, what we are trying to do with our Unity SDK is now give new content developers or existing content creators the benefit of all our experience of building our own content for our own clients. So one of the central objectives of our SDK is to speed up content creation, is to give people access to libraries and scripts that mean they won't have to do everything from scratch. You can imagine, with the amount of content that we have built, how many times have we written code for press that button? And so we don't want our content partners to be having to waste time. So I think Unity has been, an integral part of how we have developed as a content creation company. And then the other, new departure for us is the very recent launch of the Unreal SDK, and that is, again, looking very exciting. It allows us to open up to new content creators, delivering in perhaps in new verticals like automotive, where the use of Unreal is quite prevalent, I would say. And then we're also, the third SDK that we're launching is a JavaScript SDK which is all about getting us into web-based VR content. And so it all supports this strategy of facilitating the content creators in whatever form they are creating the content.
Absolutely, yeah. And we've noticed a lot of integrations with Unity, Unreal Engine. These are the main two graphical engines, gaming engines that are being used across the entire industry. And just recently, Apple announced that it would, use Unity to actually integrate into, for collaboration for the new Vision Pro headset. So that's going to see some amazing, new kinds of content that people can produce in the near future. Now, I wanted to shift over or segue into, things about learner outcomes, which are very important. Now, we talked about learner outcomes using this VR software, using these VR platforms to make sure that these trainees can actually reach their targets. Now, how does Immersive's learning platform compare to other training modules? Like, what are some of the noticeable metrics that you have recorded or potentially have noted?
Yeah, so I think one of the great guiding principles of moving companies towards a VR, XR based training or evaluation model is that you are moving companies that have measured skills, particularly with a very subjective binary type approach. And I've seen it many times. It's someone with a clipboard watching someone saying, okay, do number 7, please. And then it'll be, yeah, okay, number 8. And of course, that's highly subjective and open to bias and, many other things. So what we try and inform our current and future clients of is this ability to capture extraordinary amounts of data that allows you to move from a very subjective experience of measurement into something that's highly objective. And I think, we all know that the amount of data that you can capture as someone moves in time and space, where you can be really certain whether someone can perform the task or not, because you can see it. And I think that's an education process. And so one of the things that we help content creators with and clients is the use of XAPI. So we're trying to move people away from this very binary approach to say, look, you can precisely measure when someone presses that button by the second, if you want by the millisecond. And so that's going to allow you to establish beyond any doubt whether someone is competent or not. There's no faking required. And so part of what we have baked into our Unity SDK is a kind of reporting system that comes out of the box that allows our content creators to bake in those kind of steps in the learning process. So you're moving from, did you do the training, yes or no, tick, into, well, look, we can see that with 100 people that have been through this specific process, we can really begin to understand trends that will not just tell us about whether someone can do it or not, it's whether maybe the process itself needs adjustment because everyone gets step 8 wrong, or number 9 seems to be taking too long. And I think, Damon, this is an education process that doesn't always happen that quickly, but we're trying to use our experience and expertise, and we're trying to use the SDK, the Unity SDK particularly, and the new Unreal, to use that to encourage, not force, but encourage people to really think very carefully about data, what data is going to be captured during this process. So you have incontestable data about the efficacy of this approach. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And some of the things that we know about, tracking data. There's of course biometric data. There's also, time response data. So, for example, a learner's on the platform. How long does it take for them to respond to a specific command or task? How long does it take for them to complete it? With hand and eye tracking, they can also find out what they have been focusing on during the course of that particular instruction. So there's all sorts of new ways that we can accurately gauge where they are focused at. And that allows them to perform a bit better as the metrics are recorded. So that's what we call the attention economy, as they've started labeling it.
Yeah,
So
look, I think one of the things I would say, for early data and data obviously we capture from other clients, is that what we are trying to get people to concentrate on as the main metric is speed to competency. Can you get a person, an operator of a piece of equipment, can you get them there quicker? Yes or no? And if you can, yeah, obviously that's what unlocks future spend. And I think what we would see across the board is that typically for an operational type task, we're looking at improved speed to competency in a range of 35 to nearly 60%. Now, that at scale is highly significant. And I think we learned from our early lessons when we were initially building content. We couldn't get anyone to focus on the data at the start. Now we force people to. We're much more strident, because we've said, look, if you really believe in this technology, we've got to be able to help you prove to your budget holder that this is a good investment. And of course, when people do focus like that, the results are always fantastic. They're always fantastic.
definitely. And I can add to that is that when you train in virtual reality, it's way better to make the mistakes there, repeat, and keep training until you get it right before making it in the real world, which can cost the company billions, which can cost lives, and which can affect the clients that you work with, especially in the medical space.
Yeah, I agree.
Mining definitely is a big issue.
And I think that's why Anglo American as a mining company are one of the most advanced, because they know that the cost of failure underground is extremely high. So the stakes are high, and that's why I think that constant learning by doing, repetition, building muscle memory, all those things that we in the industry recognize well. That's why those elements are so highly prized by those companies working in those sectors.
Absolutely. Um, so, well, I guess we have time for a little bit more. Is there anything else that you want to add about, Immerse, what it's doing in space, what you expect, I suppose, with all the developments taking place across the XR industry?
Yeah, look, I think most of us that have been in this sector have been hoping that Apple might bring out a device at some point. I think people would have been expecting, perhaps slightly faster pickup. But I think now we're beginning to see that there is a momentum building. We see the momentum with our existing blue chip clients that are, way beyond the experimentation phase. They're all thinking about scaling and broad distribution. So that's very exciting for us, because that's what our platform is built for, and that continual offering of choice in terms of content. We're seeing more and more high quality content companies that are coming onto the market, and so our marketplace offering is becoming more and more sophisticated with a significant amount of choice. We're looking at sectors that are really beginning to take off in a very rapid way, like life sciences, healthcare. We're beginning to see very good progress in those areas. And I think, it's one of the great strengths of Immerse is that we've we've always tried to work in close collaboration with our bigger clients. We don't really impose anything. We always try and figure it out together, and I think that's the reason why our platforms are, considered to be the most sophisticated in the market, because we have an amazing combination of brilliant technical people, and we're good listeners. And that's why companies like Anglo American pick Immerse.
Brilliant to hear that. And thanks so much for your time. I sincerely appreciate the insights that you've shared with us about this. And so once again, we've been speaking to Tom Symonds. He is the Chief Executive and Co-founder of Immerse. My name again is Cureton, Senior Journalist for XR Today. If you'd like to follow more updates like this, please be sure to follow us at the XR News hashtag at Twitter and LinkedIn. Thanks so much for joining us today, guys. It's been a pleasure. And until next go round, until then, bye now.